Nate Diaz is back at it again, and this time, he's taking shots at Dustin Poirier. The former UFC star didn't hold back when he called Poirier a pussy after seeing his recent comments about fighting only legends. Last week, Poirier made it clear that he had no interest in fighting Paddy Pimblett, saying that there was no reason for him to take that fight. He emphasized that at this point in his career, he only wants to fight big names. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Fighters that truly mean something, but Nate Diaz wasn't buying it. After seeing Poirier's statement on Instagram, Diaz fired back, telling Poirier to fight Paddy because, in his words, he better than you. Classic Nate, never afraid to stir the pot. But that's not the only thing going on with Dustin Poirier. It looks like he's dealing with some serious issues with his social media accounts. Just last week, Poirier's ex, formerly Twitter account, was hacked, and it took him a couple of days to get it back. And now, it seems like it's happened again. This time, his account was being used to promote some random crypto coin, a clear sign that hackers were behind it once more. Poirier confirmed the news himself, posting a warning on his Instagram story. Right now, nobody knows exactly what's going on with his ex account, but one thing's for sure, these crypto scams are everywhere, and people need to be careful not to fall for them. Between Nate Diaz calling him out and his social media getting hijacked twice in a matter of days, Dustin Poirier is having a rough time right now. Will he respond to Diaz's call out? Will he finally put an end to these hacks? Only time will tell, but one thing's certain, there's never a dull moment in the fight game. Stay tuned because this situation is far from over. Paulo Costa might finally be making his return to the octagon, and if his recent comments are any indication, he could be stepping in against one of the UFC's most highly touted prospects, Bo Nickal. Last summer, after his loss to Sean Strickland at UFC 302, Costa took to Instagram, vowing to bring back the old version of himself, the one fans loved for his relentless aggression and explosive power. But since then, there's been radio silence, no fight announcements, no official word on his return. That is, until this week. During an episode of the Headlock podcast hosted by the MMA guru, Costa dropped some big hints about his next move. When asked when he'd be fighting next, he confidently stated that the answer would be revealed this week. And while he didn't outright confirm his opponent, he strongly suggested that it would be Bo Nickal. "I think I'm going to fight him," Costa said with a smirk, making it clear that this matchup is very much on the table. If this fight gets booked, it's an interesting one for both men. Costa, a former title challenger, is on a 2-fight losing streak and desperately needs a win to stay relevant in the middleweight division. Meanwhile, Nickal has been slowly climbing the ranks since making his UFC debut. The NCAA wrestling phenom last fought at UFC 309, where he dominated Paul Craig en route to a unanimous decision victory. But despite his impressive win, Dana White made it clear that Nickal still had work to do before facing elite competition. Nickal himself has been cautious about moving up too quickly, previously stating that he wanted to fight 2 more unranked opponents before taking on ranked competition. But now, just months later, it looks like that plan might be changing. A fight against Costa, who is currently ranked number 11, would be a massive leap forward for the young prospect. Stylistically, this matchup is fascinating. Costa is a powerhouse striker with brutal body shots and knockout power, while Nickal is an elite grappler with world-class wrestling. If Costa can keep the fight standing, he has the potential to overwhelm Nickal with his striking. But if Nickal gets him to the ground, it could be a long night for Costa. The question is, will this fight actually happen? And if it does, who do you think takes it? Costa's experience and striking versus Nickal's wrestling and relentless pace. This could be a fight that determines the future of the middleweight division. Stay tuned, because if Costa's words are anything to go by, we're about to get an official announcement very soon. Backstage after UFC 312, a conversation took place that stirred up a lot of debate. Fresh off his victory, Dricus du Plessis wasted no time in calling out Alex Pereira, making it clear that he wanted a shot at the light heavyweight champion. But Pereira's reaction, he didn't seem too convinced. When speaking with Daniel Cormier after the event, Pereira's response was straightforward. He thinks du Plessis is just too small to compete at 205 pounds. And let's be honest, size matters, especially when you're dealing with someone like Pereira, who is is an absolute powerhouse in the division. Pereira's coach and translator, Plinio Cruz, confirmed that Duplessis agreed to the challenge, but the champ wasn't buying into the idea just yet. As Pereira saw it, Duplessis might be a dominant force at middleweight, but moving up to light heavyweight is a whole different challenge. And when you look at Pereira standing next to Duplessis, the size difference is undeniable. Pereira looked massive in comparison, making his concerns about Duplessis' size pretty understandable. Now, credit where it's due, Duplessis has big ambitions, and you have to respect that. But before he starts setting his sights on 205, there's still unfinished business at middleweight. The biggest hurdle? Khamzat Chimaev. That's a fight that's already in the works, and it's arguably the toughest challenge Duplessis has faced yet. Chimaev has been steamrolling through opponents, and if Duplessis wants to prove he's the best at 185, he has to get through Chimaev first. On the other side of things, Pereira isn't exactly free to entertain new challenges just yet. He's got his own massive fight coming up on March 8th against Magomed Ankalaev, a dangerous and highly skilled opponent who won't be an easy fight for anyone. If Pereira successfully defends his belt and Duplessis gets through Chimaev, then maybe, just maybe, we'll see these two meet inside the octagon in 2025. But for now, it's all speculation. Pereira isn't convinced that Duplessis has what it takes to hang with the big boys at 205, and Duplessis still has a long road ahead before he can even think about moving up. One thing's for sure though, if these two do end up facing off, it's going to be one hell of a fight. Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen recently responded to MMA Guru's bold claim that USA wrestling credentials are no longer trustworthy in MMA. Guru accused Cormier and Sonnen of overhyping wrestlers, claiming they've convinced fans that elite wrestling backgrounds guarantee UFC success, yet many of these fighters fail to deliver when it matters. His comments sparked a strong reaction from both former fighters on their ESPN show, Good Guy, Bad Guy. Cormier, caught off guard by the statement, initially acted as if he had no idea who MMA Guru was, but after hearing the argument, he admitted that the landscape of MMA has changed. In the past, a dominant wrestler could enter the UFC, pick up some striking, and still thrive. But today, fighters must be well-rounded. Wrestling alone isn't enough. The sport has evolved, and while wrestling remains a key foundation, relying on it without developing striking and submissions is no longer a winning formula. Chael Sonnen, however, strongly disagreed with Guru's take. He argued that wrestling is still one of the most important skills in MMA, allowing fighters to dictate where the fight takes place, control opponents, and wear them down. Sonnen pushed back against the idea that wrestling is overrated, pointing out that many top champions continue to use it as their primary weapon. MMA Guru quickly fired back, sarcastically welcoming Cormier and Sonnen to the algorithm and questioning why Cormier acted like he didn't know who he was. But things didn't stop there. Nickal, one of the UFC's most promising wrestling-based prospects, also jumped in. Nickal took things a step further by inviting Guru onto his podcast, saying, "Come on my podcast, let me educate you on American wrestling, my brother." This debate highlights a larger conversation in MMA. Wrestling was once the most dominant base in the UFC, with legends like Matt Hughes, Randy Couture, and Cormier himself proving its effectiveness. But as the sport evolved, striking and submissions became just as crucial. While wrestling is still a powerful tool, modern fighters must be more well-rounded to succeed at the highest level. So, what's next? Will MMA Guru accept Nickal's invitation and continue the debate? Or will he stick to his argument that wrestling is overhyped in today's UFC? Either way, this discussion is far from over, and fans will be watching closely.